I still remember the smell before the sound, kerosene, cotton, and smoke, the night our father fell to his knees begging his own daughters for mercy. His voice broke, but we didn't. Behind him, the warehouse burned like a second sunrise. 537 bales of cotton, $50,000. Gone in minutes. He had once refused. A doctor for our mother because it cost too. Now he watched. His fortune turned to ash for the same reason. The fire hissed, the sky turned red, and every scream from the big house felt like justice. We were the proof of his sins, his enslaved daughters, born from violence and raised to be invisible. That night we made the world see us. Before I tell you how we lit that match, tell me this. If freedom demanded fire, would you strike it? Subscribe and comment your state below if you care about buried history. Because this isn't just about revenge. It's about the price of being human. I was born on a cold January morning in 1847, in a cabin that smelled of clay and smoke. My twin sister Leah came first. I followed 3 minutes later. Our mother Celia said the wind outside stopped the moment we cried. Maybe even the sky felt shame. The overseer wrote our births in the plantation ledger. 2 new assets, half valued for the color of our skin. To him, we weren't babies. We were inventory. Fairview Plantation stretched wider than we could see. Rows of cotton like pale waves under a burning Georgia sun. The big house sat high on the hill, painted white to hide its rot. Inside lived our father, Master Roberts, the man who owned everything, including us. He had our green eyes, our light skin, our shape of jaw. Every face in that house reminded us who we were, and who we weren't. Mistress Roberts hated the sight of us. She'd call us those yellow brats, whisper to guests, proof of his weakness. Each word fell like a lash across our mother's back. When the mistress ordered extra work, Mama took it in silence, scrubbing floors till her fingers bled, just so we could stay near each other. By the time we could walk, we carried trays in the dining room. We stood behind our father's chair, silent while he carved meat and laughed with friends who never asked why 2 little girls looked so much like him. Sometimes he'd pass us leftover biscuits. Sometimes he'd look away as if we were ghosts. Kindness was his favorite cruelty, giving just enough to keep hope alive. At night, Mama taught us in whispers. She'd trace letters in spilled flour. A for away, F for freedom. If you can read, she said, no chain can keep your mind. We learned fast, we had to. Words became our secret weapon, the only thing they couldn't whip out of us still. We lived in 2 worlds that wanted neither of us. The other enslaved children called us half white, too soft. The white children called us half black, too dirty. We belonged nowhere, and every day that loneliness hardened into something sharp. Sometimes, when the wind carried the smell of cotton bloom, I'd see the overseer counting bales and think, that's all we are to him, weight, yield, profit. Each mark on his paper was another heartbeat traded for coins. And I understood that our father's love had a number too. It was written right beside our names. The plantation ran on that arithmetic. Whips for speed, hunger for obedience, ledgers for souls. Fairview looked calm from the road, but underneath it hissed with anger. We all heard it. The whisper of people dreaming of escape, of freedom that lived somewhere beyond the river. Leah and I listened more than we spoke. We memorized the routes, the guards, the sound of the mistress's shoes on the porch boards. Every cruelty became a lesson. Every silence became a plan. We didn't know then that the same ink that marked our worth would one day mark our revenge. But the ledger had already written our fate. 2 girls priced as property, destined to destroy their owner. Georgia, 2 sisters. One master's lie. The ledger never forgives. If you were born inside a book that sold your name, would you find a way to rewrite it? Summer in Georgia comes heavy, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes the air feel alive. That was the season Mama started coughing. At first, she said it was just the dust from the fields, the heat from the kitchen stove. But each night her breath grew weaker, shorter, like a candle fighting wind. Leah and I took turns sitting beside her cot, wiping her face with cool cloths. We whispered songs to her, the same ones she once sang to us when thunder scared us at night. Her hands, once strong enough to carry water buckets and trays, trembled now, even holding a spoon. We begged the overseer to send for a doctor. He said only Master Roberts could decide that, so I went to him. He was in his study, counting ledgers, always counting. The air smelled like ink, sweat, and tobacco. I knelt beside his chair. "Please, sir," I said, "Mama's sick. She needs a doctor." He didn't even look up. "Celia's strong. She'll recover." "Please, sir, she's getting worse. She can't eat, can't stand." He sighed, annoyed. "I'm not spending good money on a doctor for a slave when cotton season's near. If she dies, she dies." Those words didn't echo. They carved themselves into me. "She dies, she dies." Leah stepped forward, tears burning her eyes. "She's the mother of your children," she whispered. For a moment, his hand froze over the ledger. Then he looked up, cold, hard, empty. "I have no children by slaves," he said. "Only property." Something broke in me that moment. It wasn't a sound. It was a silence, deep and final. I walked out without a word. Behind me, I heard the scratching of his pen, adding numbers that would never include us. That night, the house was quiet except for Mama's breathing. Slow, shallow, like the river in drought. Leah sat beside her, holding her hand. I stood in the corner, staring at the dying embers in the hearth. "Why does God let men like him live?" I asked. Leah didn't answer. She just looked at me, and I saw it in her eyes, the same fire building in mine. By morning, the fire had a name: revenge. When Mama's breath finally stopped, the world didn't move. The roosters crowed. The field bells rang. Life on the plantation went on as if nothing had changed. But for us, everything had. Master Roberts didn't come to the burial. He just sent word, "Make it quick. There's cotton to weigh." So we buried her with our own hands. No preacher, no song, just two daughters standing over a shallow grave, promising her one thing: that he would pay for every tear she cried. That day, hope stopped breathing. But something else took its place. Something sharper, something alive. A mother's breath fades. The daughter's mercy ends. The spark lives. If mercy dies in your hands, what would you build from its ashes? After Mama's burial, silence became our language. Words were dangerous things on a plantation. They could get you whipped or worse. So Leah and I built our own way to speak. A tap on the table meant wait. A cough meant someone's coming. A hand brushed twice across the arm meant we moved tonight. Every night we met behind the smokehouse, where the smell of salt meat covered our whispers. The moon watched us learn the kind of math they never taught in books. How many guards on each shift? How many steps between the big house and the warehouse? How long the oil in a lamp takes to catch? We weren't just grieving. We were studying. I still hear Leah's voice in the dark. "He counts his money every night, same as he counts us." I nodded. "Then we'll make his numbers mean nothing." We found kerosene in the tool shed, stolen from the overseer's supply. We hid rags under our skirts, carried flint in a bread pouch. Everything we touched became a weapon dressed as work. By day we cleaned his house. By night we planned to burn it down. Not the walls, but the soul of it. His cotton. Sometimes fear crept in between our plans. Leah would stop folding cloth and stare at me. "What if they catch us before we light it?" "Then they hang us," I said softly. She swallowed hard, then whispered, "Then let them hang smoke, not silence." One evening, lightning cracked far out on the horizon. The sky smelled like iron and rain. Leah looked at it and said, "That's what it'll sound like when we start." And I believed her. We began marking paths through the fields with tiny bits of thread, white for safe, red for danger. No one noticed. Everyone was too busy counting cotton, the same cotton that had stolen Mama's life. When the harvest wagons creaked past, I whispered, "Each bale is a heartbeat stolen." Leah answered, "Then we'll give them back in smoke." Our language grew until we barely needed words. One glance, one breath, that was enough. Even the crickets seemed to know when to fall silent around us. The night before we acted, we sat by the dying coals outside our cabin. Leah tied a small ribbon around her wrist, Mama's old hair tie. "For luck," she said. I tied one around mine. "For justice," I whispered. By then, we had stopped praying for heaven to help us. Heaven had been quiet too long. We would help ourselves. 2 signals, 1 oath. Midnight waits. If justice could speak only in secret, would you dare learn its language? The world at Fairview ran on numbers. Bales, pounds, dollars, lives. So Leah and I decided to use their math against them. For weeks we listened from the hall whenever Master Robert spoke business. 537 bales. $90 a bale. $50,000 total. He said it proud like it was scripture. To him, cotton was salvation. To us, it was the devil in plain cloth. We started counting too. Not his money, but his blind spots. 2 guards on rotation. 1 lantern between them. 3 minutes between rounds. Enough time to breathe, to move, to strike. We gathered what we needed in silence. Old rags, small bottles of lamp oil, bits of wire for wicks. Every scrap looked harmless in daylight. By night, it was the anatomy of fire. Leah drew the map on the floor of our cabin with a burnt stick. "Here's the warehouse," she said. "And here, the door by the river." Her hands trembled, but her eyes never blinked. "We light both sides. We meet in the middle. Then we run," I nodded. "Follow the river north. If we're torn apart, we meet under the oak. The same oak where Mama once told us stories about freedom. It would now be the place we chose to begin our own." The hardest part was pretending nothing had changed. Every day we served food to the people who would hunt us soon. Every smile we gave was a lie wrapped in obedience. Mistress Roberts once said, "You girls have such calm eyes." If only she had known what lived behind them. At dusk, I practiced striking the flint. Quiet, quick. Sparks jumped like tiny spirits eager for release. Each one felt like a promise. Each one whispered, "Soon." Leah stole a pocket watch from the big house. It ticked steady between us, counting down to freedom. "Time's his god," she said. "We'll use it to kill him." We marked the night, 2 days after Mama's burial, when the moon would be low and the guards half asleep. That evening, we sat outside our cabin, pretending to rest. In truth, we were rehearsing every step. Leah whispered, "If we fail," I stopped her. "Then we fail free." When the sun fell, the plantation glowed gold for the last time. The wind carried the smell of dry cotton. It smelled like wealth to him, like war to us. By candlelight, we packed what little we owned. 1 ribbon, a Bible page, 2 pieces of bread. I looked at the matches and felt no fear, only balance. 50,000 for one woman's life seemed fair to me. When I closed my eyes, I saw numbers turning into flames. 537 bales, $90 each, $50,000 gone. The arithmetic of fire, the kind of math only pain can solve. 5 exits, 2 sisters, 1 number, 50,000. If justice had a price tag, would you pay it in fire? The night we chose was moonless. Even the stars hid their eyes. We slipped from the cabin barefoot, carrying small bundles that rattled softly. Rags soaked in kerosene, flint, and the pocket watch ticking steady like a heartbeat. The air felt thick, almost listening. Every cricket went silent as we passed. The warehouse stood ahead, black against black, its outline just visible by the faint lantern hanging near the door. Inside slept the year's fortune, 537 bales pressed and stacked to the ceiling. The air around it smelled like dust, sweat, and something waiting to burn. Leah whispered, "Are you ready?" I nodded. But the truth is, no one is ever ready to set their world on fire. She picked the padlock with a hairpin, her hands steady as prayer. The door creaked open and heat rolled out like breath from a beast. Inside, the moonlight filtered through cracks in the boards, cutting thin lines across the walls. Cotton glowed pale and soft, innocent-looking. But we knew better. We split without speaking, she to the far end, I near the door. Each step echoed in my chest like thunder hiding under skin. I set the first fuse, twisting a rag tight around a small bottle of lamp oil. The smell of kerosene crawled up my nose until I could almost taste it. Across the room, I saw a faint spark. Leah's first light. My hand shook as I struck the flint. Once, twice, the third time, the spark caught. It hissed, a sound like cotton breathing its last. Then came the flame, tiny, trembling, then alive. The fire spread fast, whispering across fibers that had waited their whole lives to burn. It climbed, hissed, and bloomed orange, bright enough to paint the walls like dawn. "Now," I shouted. Leah ran toward me, her eyes wide, the fire reflecting inside them like mirrors of hell and freedom. But before we reached the door, voices cut through the night. "Hey, who's there?" The guards. Too early. Their lantern light flashed through the cracks. "Smoke, the warehouse, they didn't finish." The first explosion threw them backward, heat blasting through the open door. Flames shot up the walls, turning wood into screaming light. The whole sky lit up as if day had come early to see what we'd done. We ran out the back, ducking low through the brush. Behind us, the fire roared, eating everything it touched. The air turned gold, then red. Sparks floated like angry stars. The smell of burning cotton filled the world. From the hill, I looked back. The warehouse was collapsing, one beam at a time. And in front of it, a man stood on his knees. Our father. His face glowed in the firelight, twisted between fury and fear. He screamed our names, not as daughters, but as curses. But all I heard was justice in his voice. Leah grabbed my hand. "We have to go." We ran into the trees, the fire at our backs, dogs already barking in the distance. Each bark was a promise, each breath a prayer. The heat followed us like a living thing, chasing us into the dark. Behind us, $50,000 turned to ash. Ahead of us, freedom waited somewhere beyond the river. And for the first time in my life, the night didn't scare me. It felt like home. Mid-video CTA. If you're still watching, you care about buried history. Subscribe now for more stories they tried to erase. Fairview burns. The river calls. The hunt begins. If freedom demanded a flame, would you dare to light it? The forest swallowed us whole. Branches whipped our faces. Roots clawed our feet, but we didn't stop running. Behind us, the plantation screamed. Bells clanged, dogs barked, men shouted orders. The fire we started was now a living thing, roaring its fury to the sky. "Faster," Leah gasped. Our lungs burned, our hands slick with sap and sweat. The earth smelled of mud and smoke. Every sound felt too loud. Every breath felt borrowed. When we reached the river, it was wider than I remembered. The current moved fast, dark and cold. I hesitated only a second. Then I stepped in. The water bit my skin like knives, but it silenced our scent. We waded deeper until it reached our chests. The fire's glow flickered through the trees like dawn chasing us. Somewhere behind us, a voice yelled. They went toward the river. Then came the dogs. Low growls. Teeth on the wind. Leah looked at me, eyes wide. "Keep going," I whispered. We moved along the river, letting the current pull us north. Each step was a prayer disguised as movement. Each ripple a warning. The dogs reached the bank minutes later, barking and whining. A gunshot cracked, echoing off the water. We ducked low, hearts pounding. The bullet hissed past and vanished into the night. For a moment I thought about stopping. Not to give up, but to turn around, to end it our way. But Leah grabbed my arm. No, Mama didn't raise us to die begging. So we kept moving. A branch snapped ahead. Two shadows appeared, men with lanterns. I felt Leah tense beside me. We froze under the low brush, half submerged. The men scanned the water. "Tracks end here," one said. "Maybe they drowned." The other laughed. "Then let the river keep 'em." Their footsteps faded into the distance. Only then did I breathe again. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of smoke even stronger now. I looked back through the trees and saw the sky glowing orange, the shape of the big house blurred by rising heat. Fairview was dying. Everything he owned gone. He'd wanted to own lives. Now fire owned his. We followed the river until the current grew too strong to fight. Our legs shook, our skin raw from cold. Leah stumbled onto the muddy bank and collapsed. I pulled her up, whispering, "Not yet. We promised." We found shelter under a fallen tree, dripping, shivering, and half blind from exhaustion. The dog's barking grew faint, replaced by the soft hiss of rain beginning to fall. The fire was losing its voice behind us. "So were we." Leah pressed her forehead against mine. "Do you think he knows it was us?" I nodded. "He'll know. And I want him to." For a long while, we just listened to the rain. It washed the soot from our skin, but not the guilt, not the fear. Yet somewhere under it all, there was peace, raw, trembling, but real. The world had gone quiet again. Not the silence of the quarters or the big house. A different kind. The silence of freedom beginning to breathe. Lanterns sweep. Water hides. Sisters hold. If freedom made the hounds chase you, would you still run? The rain stopped before dawn. Fog rose from the river like breath from a ghost. We had made it miles north, but the world still felt small. Just trees, mud, and the echo of dogs somewhere behind us. Leah's voice was hoarse. "We can't keep walking forever." "We don't have to," I said, pointing ahead. "There's a crossing, shallow water, wide stones. Our mother once mentioned it. If we passed that point, we'd be outside Fairview's reach." But fate has a way of circling back. Halfway across, we heard movement, heavy boots on wet rock. 2 men stepped from the mist, rifles slung and lanterns low. Their coats were damp, their eyes sharper than the steel they carried. "Evening, ladies," one said with a grin. "Funny thing, 2 gals wandering out here after a fire." The second man raised his lantern. Light hit our faces, he froze. "Lord, they got his eyes," he whispered. "Green like Master Roberts's own." Leah's hand tightened around mine. "They knew," the older one spat into the mud. "He wants you back alive. Said to deliver you to impersonal." I felt the word alive twist in my chest. Not mercy, but ownership. He wasn't calling us daughters. He was calling us property. The man stepped closer, rope in hand. "No, don't make it hard." I lifted my head, met his eyes, and said quietly, "You tell him Sarah said no." He blinked. "Sarah who?" "Sarah Roberts," I said, voice steady. "My father's name. The one he tried to keep from me." The other man cursed and raised his gun. Before he could aim, Leah moved, fast as lightning. She swung a broken branch from the ground, hitting his wrist. The gun went off, the shot tearing into the air and echoing off the trees. The blast scared the second man's horse, which reared and threw him backward into the mud. I grabbed the fallen rifle. It was heavy but familiar, like holding the truth. The man on the ground groaned, reaching for his pistol. I aimed without thinking. "Don't," I said. He froze. The world stood still, just breath, smoke, and fear. I could have pulled the trigger. I wanted to. But I thought of Mama's last words. "Find your freedom, not his death." So I lowered the gun, tossed it into the river. "Go," I told him. "Tell Master Roberts what his daughters did. Tell him we're coming for his piece next." He stared at me like he'd seen a ghost, then scrambled away, dragging his partner through the brush. Their footsteps faded into the fog. Leah leaned against me, shaking. "We let them live." "Yes," I said. "Because we're not him." The mist closed around us again, quiet and gray. We crossed the last stone, stepping out of Fairview and into our own names. Sarah and Leah. Not property, not numbers, but women who had burned their chains. 2 hunters. 2 daughters. One name breaks. If the man who owned you begged for mercy, would you give it or walk away? The river carried us farther north than we meant to go. By the time the sun rose, the smoke from Fairview was only a faint bruise on the horizon. We climbed onto dry land, shaking, starving, and alive. The woods smelled different here. Pine and wet earth instead of cotton and sweat. For the first time in our lives, the air didn't taste like someone else's power. But freedom has a sound, and sometimes that sound is silence, too big, too heavy. Leah sat on a fallen log, her face streaked with soot. "We did it," she whispered. "It's gone." "Not all of it," I said. I could still hear the dogs, the bells, the shouting, echoes chasing us from miles away. We walked for hours that day, barefoot and hollow. Every tree looked like a witness. Every rustle sounded like a hunter's step. By evening, rain began again, soft, steady, cleansing. We found shelter beneath a rock ledge and tried to rest. Leah lay beside me, her eyes open. "Do you think they'll punish the others?" she asked. My throat closed. "They might." Her tears mixed with the rain. "I never wanted anyone else to hurt." "I know," I said. "But he'll need someone to blame." The thought clawed at me. Every servant, every field hand. We could see their faces in the firelight. They'd loved our mother. Now they might suffer for what her daughters had done. I turned the guilt over in my hands like a stone I couldn't drop. Was justice still justice if the innocent bled for it? We made a small fire with damp branches. The smoke curled upward, thin and gray. Leah watched it dance. "When Mama died, I prayed for God to send a sign," she said. "He did," I replied. "A match," she smiled weakly. Then her face grew still. "If I die on the way," she whispered, "don't bury me back there, promise." "I promise," I said. "You'll rest where the sun doesn't own you." We stayed hidden 3 days, moving only at night. Sometimes we heard men on horseback far off, their shouts fading into the distance. Other times we saw nothing but our own breath. Each dawn felt stolen. On the 4th night, I carved words into a flat piece of bark and set it afloat in the river. It read, "Mama, we kept our oath. Your fire still burns." I watched it drift away until it vanished. Leah took my hand and whispered, "Then we live." For her. The next morning, when the wind shifted south, we smelled Fairview one last time. Ashes wet and bitter. Our past had burned, but its shadow followed us like smoke under our skin. We couldn't go back. We couldn't undo it, but we could survive, and that too was a kind of rebellion. Ash behind, rope ahead. We choose the road. If freedom demanded another's pain, would you still call it justice? By the time we reached the next county, our feet were bleeding, and our bodies felt made of stone. The forest had thinned into farmland, small cabins scattered like forgotten promises. We hadn't eaten in 2 days. Every fence we crossed felt like a question. Is it safe here, or will they send us back? Leah pointed toward a cabin near the tree line. A quilt hung across a clothesline, fluttering gently in the wind. At first, I didn't think much of it. Then I saw the pattern: black squares, red triangles, and a single blue patch in the corner. Our mother had whispered about it once. It wasn't decoration. It was a signal, a mark of the Underground Railroad. We waited until nightfall before approaching. A candle glowed in the window, faint but steady. Leah knocked once, softly. A voice answered, calm but firm. "Who sends you?" Leah hesitated, then whispered, "Celia's daughters." The door opened. An older woman stood there, gray hair wrapped in a scarf, eyes deep as the river. "Lord have mercy," she murmured. "Come in before someone sees you." Her name was Aunt Mary. She wrapped us in blankets, pressed warm bread into our hands, and listened as we told our story. Every word, every mile, every flame. When we finished, she just nodded slowly. "I heard about that fire." Whole county did. They say the sky turned red for miles. "Did they catch anyone?" Leah asked. "Not yet," Aunt Mary said. "But they're looking south, not north." "You bought yourselves time." She showed us where to wash, gave us clean clothes, and rubbed our cracked feet with oil. For the first time in days, I felt human again. That night, we slept on quilts softer than clouds. In the quiet, Aunt Mary spoke softly from her rocking chair. "Listen, child. What you did was dangerous, but it wasn't just revenge. It was a message. You showed them that chains don't always hold." Her words sank deep. I realized that our fire hadn't just burned his cotton. It had burned through silence itself. The next morning, Aunt Mary pulled out a map drawn by hand. She pointed at a line of stars. "Follow these safe houses. There's a wagon leaving tomorrow for South Carolina, then a train through Virginia. After that, a ship to Philadelphia. If you keep your heads low, you'll make it." She taught us new names, Mary and Ruth Johnson, and made us repeat them until they sounded real. "You're not slaves running away," she said. "You're free women traveling home." That night before we left, she tied 2 ribbons around our wrists, one red, one white. "For remembrance," she said. "So you never forget who you were, even when the world calls you something else." As dawn broke, we climbed into the back of a wagon loaded with barrels and cloth. The road ahead was long, but the fear behind us was longer. When the wheels began to turn, Leah looked back one last time. The quilt on the line swayed gently in the wind. Black, red, blue. A secret flag waving us forward. 1 quilt. 3 rotes. 2 new names. If freedom meant burying your name, would you still claim it as your own? Weeks passed before we dared breathe easy. Each new sunrise meant another mile between us and Fairview. Another name to remember. Another lie to live. In South Carolina, we traveled in a wagon of grain sacks. In Virginia, we hid under crates marked textiles. By the time we reached Philadelphia, our bodies were bruised, but our spirits alive. Aunt Mary's network had done what they promised, delivered us from the land that once owned us. But even in the North, freedom wasn't simple. The fugitive slave law stretched like a shadow over every doorway. We slept light, spoke less, trusted few. Leah found work cleaning for a Quaker family. I stitched dresses for women who never asked about the scars on my hands. Each night, we'd whisper our real names before sleeping, as if afraid they might vanish with the dawn. Then came the letters. Small, folded notes passed quietly through the Underground Railroad's secret line. The first came from Aunt Mary's cousin in Georgia. She wrote, "Fairview's gone. The warehouse ash, the fields ruined. Robert's near broke. His wife gone home to her kin. His name, cursed." A week later, another message arrived. Planters whisper about a sickness. Barns burn. Cotton rots in the sun. They call it Robert's fever. It started as rumor, a whisper in the fields, a curse among overseers. But soon it became something real. Fires lit across Georgia, then South Carolina, then Alabama. Cotton gins exploded. Bales vanished into flame. Each act carried our story on its smoke. 2 slave girls burned 50,000 in cotton and escaped. Every time I heard about another fire, I felt 2 things: pride and fear. Pride because our act had become a spark in others' hands. Fear because I knew some wouldn't make it out alive. Leah once said, "Fire doesn't ask who it saves." Now I understood. The same flames that freed us could destroy others if they weren't careful. Months passed. News spread that Master Roberts had sold half his land and 30 of his slaves to pay his debts. He was seen wandering the county roads, drunk, gray, muttering to himself. Someone said he carried a burned piece of cotton in his coat pocket. A reminder, or maybe a punishment he couldn't throw away. Leah cried when she heard. Not for him, but for everything that had to die before we could live. "He'll never understand," she whispered. "No," I said, "but history will." As the years passed, the story grew larger than the truth. Some said we used magic to start the fire. Others swore we were caught and hanged. Our ghosts seen near the ruins. We let the stories live. Sometimes, legend can do more than proof. By 1861, the South was tearing itself apart in war. Every soldier who marched through Georgia walked on the ashes of Fairview, though few knew the tale beneath their boots. And every whisper of Robert's fever reminded them that fire was not only destruction, it was warning. We had burned a man's fortune, yes. But what truly burned was the lie that he owned our souls. That lie, once lit, never stopped burning. A rumor becomes a weapon. A weapon becomes a warning. If your pain could start a revolution, would you let the world burn to hear your truth? It's been 40 years since that night. The smell of smoke still finds me sometimes. Not from cotton now, but from the lamps on my table. When I close my eyes, I still see the glow against the sky. The way my father's knees hit the dirt. The sound of everything he ever loved collapsing into ash. They call me Mary Johnson here in Philadelphia. A free woman, a seamstress, a quiet soul. But when I look in the mirror, I still see Sarah Roberts, Celia's daughter, Leah's twin, the girl who set the South on fire. Freedom, I've learned, isn't a finish line. It's a burden you have to keep carrying, even when your hands are tired. Leah and I built lives here, humble, honest, hidden. We never spoke of Fairview to strangers, but some nights when the world outside grew still, we'd light a candle and whisper our mother's name into the flame. That was our prayer, our proof that we survived. When the war came, the world finally began to burn for everyone. The same fire that started in our hearts spread across the country. And when the Emancipation Proclamation reached Philadelphia, we wept. Not because it freed us, but because it freed the ones who never got the chance to run. After the war, I heard what became of him, Master Roberts. He died alone in 1867, sick and penniless, buried in a small plot behind the church that once refused to bury my mother. No stone, no name, only grass, but something beautiful rose where his empire fell. A school for colored children, built on the ruins of the old cotton warehouse. They called it the Celia Roberts School for Girls. The first time I heard that name, I cried until my hands shook. The place where our mother's pain began had become a house for learning, for light. That, I think, was the truest fire we ever started. Leah didn't live to see it. She passed in 1889, her body tired but her spirit fierce until the end. When she died, I buried her under a quilt Aunt Mary had made, black, red, and blue. The same colors that once told us where freedom waited. Before they lowered her down, I whispered, "We made it, sister. We did what we said we would. Now it's just me." An old woman with trembling hands, sewing until the daylight fades. Sometimes young folks come asking for stories. About the war, about slavery, about the fires. I tell them pieces, never all, because the truth is too heavy for those who've never been chained. But sometimes when they ask if I regret it, I tell them this. When a man builds his fortune on the backs of others, his fall is justice, not tragedy. The cotton we burned was worth $50,000 in his world, but in ours it bought something priceless. Our names, our souls, our right to live without permission. The night we lit that match, we didn't just destroy his wealth. We rewrote what freedom meant, not given but taken, not begged but built. My grave will bear the name Mary Johnson, but beneath it, carved smaller, are the words I chose myself. Sarah Roberts. She burned the cotton and lit the way. If you ever stand there, among the stones, and wonder if it was worth it, remember this: the fire burned for hours, but the light never died. It still lives in every hand that dares to fight back, every voice that says no more, every soul that refuses to bow. We were born in chains. We died free, and the fire we lit that night still burns in every heart that remembers. One match, one freedom, a path lit for others. If you held that match today, would you light it? If this story moved you, share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more hidden histories they tried to erase. Because remembrance is resistance,